Hello and welcome to Sunday's live broadcast from Autistic Radio. This is the unedited version, so if you're listening this on a catch-up service like YouTube or LinkedIn, there is actually a version of this which is a podcast, much shorter, with all of the ums cut out and all of the silences cut out. Spectrum Voices Conversation, Harry's Facebook page, is an Autistic Radio production for the Autistic Association. We are sponsored by coldpack.co.uk. If you're a practitioner using cryotherapy in your practice, Coldpack produces a device that has all of your details, your website, your logo printed directly on the outside of the pack. And when you buy from them, we receive a generous contribution to keep the work that we do here as an authentically autistic charity. If you're a consumer wanting to get yourself a Coldpack gives everything that you pay on the Coldpack website to us. So, over to you now, Harry. Time for the show.
Hello, this is Harry's Facebook for Sunday the 9th of November 2025. Welcome all. And this is where we discuss Facebook posts that have been shared on the Autistic Radio Facebook page. And the first post is from Diversity Doodles, which is a personal blog. Doodles that, with your help, aim to spread messages about neurodiversity that I'd like the world to understand. Thank you for helping making it happen. And they've shared the following. Is it your late diagnosis just questioning every part of your existence every minute of every day? While everyone expects you to carry on as a neurotypical that you aren't. I hope it isn't. I hope this isn't your reality. I hope this isn't happening to you. But if it is, I get it. Hugs. What's your thoughts?
I would say if somebody is late diagnosed or has come to their realization of their autistic identity as an adult, then what the poster has put here is very familiar. It's something that happens to us all. I don't think it's anything that we can avoid, really. We need to have that introspective period to deal with this information, don't we?
I was socially isolated by the time I got my diagnosis, and and most of the people that I knew that knew me, when they heard, they weren't surprised and they just accepted it.
But what about what the post says there? Did you find that your late diagnosis meant that you were questioning every part of your existence every minute of every day?
I
It
think
didn't make a difference because, sorry, carry on.
I'm sorry too. I'll be brief. I think some days it does. And I think for the first year, in a way, it didn't, because I didn't really know a lot about um, this whole thing, late diagnosed adults. I was surprised that um, I was just surprised. It's only been since I understand it better that I do have days like this, but not every day.
Sorry, I'm having some sound problems, but I didn't question my existence every day because I knew why things were the way they were, and I just accepted them. So I understand that my behaviour is of someone with a degree of autism, and I accept that. I'm not questioning why I do things because I'm not doing bad things.
In the text, Robbie says, my diagnosis was only confirmation of what I already knew. My father and I had a discussion after he had read an article on autism, and we both realised I was autistic.
So what do we think the poster is trying to say here?
From what I read from it, and why I shared it, is not from my own experience, but from their experience. From their experience, they feel that there's been a lot of questioning of existence, of behaviour, and people around expecting you to stop doing all this, stop questioning, just get on with it, which looks like, from what I'm reading, is the lack of understanding out with. It's like a struggle within and people around you not understanding that you have to question. You want answers, or at least, if not answers, you want a little peace of mind. And that lack of understanding from others, because things are being diagnosed or identified so late on, is, it's not there, which makes it a very uncomfortable existence to them. But it's also identifying that others may be struggling the same.
So is that what is being questioned, the neurotypical reality that you were sharing with neurotypicals before you got your diagnosis?
For me, I don't think I'm questioning it. I think I realized I was living that way for so long and maybe increasingly masking. Um, and so I realized that there weren't very many people I could talk to this about, and there are no services where I am for late diagnosed adults. And so I needed a safe place to sometimes talk about it, like here. I think it might take me a while. And when I saw this post, I just thought, oh, thank you for the doodle.
There is something in the post there that people do experience, and that's the expectations of the people who are around you who, for them, nothing has changed. They haven't been given a diagnosis or had a realization about their autism. So for them, they might expect you to continue to be the same person that you've always been, whilst you at the same time are looking into what your neurodiversity means for you, and that might mean some changes. So there's a disconnect there that people feel isolated with, and they need to find community and speak to other autistic people to experience and explain their autism amongst people who get it, because they don't want to break up the network they have, but it doesn't feel as though the network is realizing quite what a big change this is for the autistic person when they do realize or they do get diagnosed.
The next post is from Panda, who are a charity organisation which stands for Promoting Autism Neurodiversity Awareness. And what they've shared is the following. 2025, forced sterilisation of autists and others seen as unfit to be parents. And I'll read some of the introduction. Autistic in Denmark, Finland, Cyprus, Portugal, Bulgaria, Croatia, Czechia, Estonia, Hungary, Latvia, Lithuania, Malta and Slovakia. Forced sterilisation because autists are not fit to be parents. Sometimes I think the world is barbaric and that neurodivergents are the moral heart of our society, where many neurotypicals display staggering levels of cruelty. Today, I have to say, has left me feeling sick. I had no idea that the forced sterilisation of disabled women is still legal in 13 European Union nations. A scandal almost hidden in plain sight, and a direct violation of human rights and autonomy. The countries where forced sterilisation is still permitted by law are Bulgaria, Croatia, Cyprus, Czechia, Denmark, Estonia, Finland, Hungary, Latvia, Lithuania, Malta, Portugal and Slovakia. In these countries, a guardian or legal representative can often consent to sterilisation on behalf of a person with disabilities, rather than the individual themselves. Despite the European Union's ratification of the Istanbul Convention, which commits member states to protect women from violence, forced sterilisation remains a sanctious practice and often justified as being for their own good, or to spare families and spouses from the imagined burden of disabled motherhood. Quite intense, this one. But what's people's thoughts on this?
I think one of the first things is that people will see this and see this post as so extreme that they might question whether any of this is true. I was at a conference where we had the opportunity to also go to, as well as presenting, we had the opportunity to go to the presentations from other people. And there was a professional there who had spent his life as a consultant and a doctor and a leader of a charitable outreach that was going across Europe and looking at the situation. And he found mental hospitals in different countries where people were in conditions that we would not feel that we want to recognise in our history now, still continuing. There are systemic problems in a number of countries where autistic people and other people who don't fit the standard mould of brains are treated like this. It's true. It's out there.
I'm not surprised by this. I guess for two reasons. And the only reason I can even talk about it right now is to step back and look at it in an academic way, which is sort of what you did, Jules. You're talking about a conference of professionals. So in the beginning of my, post-secondary education, I did work with children, and that was, I don't know how long ago, more than 40 years ago. Let's say 40 something years, 43 years ago, let's say. Even then, children were institutionalized. And this is sort of like in some places on earth, some countries, maybe some countries on that list we're surprised about and others we're not surprised about. And the ones that we are surprised about are more like maybe the countries we're in. The countries we're in have very, in recent history, hidden children who aren't, considered normal. The name of the hospital here, and probably in many places at one time in the not too distant past, was called the Home for Incurables. And then in the more recent time of my life, as a genealogist, you see things like this all the time. And they do happen in your own country to different groups of people, or they have in the recent past. There's been forced sterilization of different groups in Canada that we know about. And my first thought when I did not step back, when I had a personal and emotional reaction to it, was this is part of a kind of genocide.
Continuing on with the post, it continues, autistic activist Sarah is fighting for a total ban in Portugal, rallying support across Europe and giving voice to women still living with the trauma of these violations. For Natasha in Belgium, sterilised by her mother's decision at 24, the aftermath has left deep wounds. For years, she was unable to speak about what happened, internalising the message that disabled women are unfit to be mothers. Sonny, a 34-year-old with learning difficulties in Berlin, stands as living proof that disabled parenting is not only possible but thriving when given the right supports. She raises her son Matteo in special accommodation designed for parents with disabilities, defying pervasive prejudice. Forced sterilisation is rooted in harmful, outdated notions about disability, gender, and capacity. It strips away agency, perpetuates the idea that disabled people are less deserving of family life. The ongoing legality across much of Europe exposes the gap between human rights rhetoric and reality for disabled women, and autistic women in particular. More people's thoughts. What it continues with is the following. Autistic men and boys have also been subjected to forced or coerced sterilisation in some European countries where the practice is legally permitted for people with disabilities. Although most available accounts, advocacy and research focus on women and girls due to the particular intersection of gender and reproductive rights, men and boys with intellectual and psychosocial disabilities, including autists, may also be sterilised if they are judged incapable of making decisions about reproduction or are placed under guardianship. The legal frameworks that allow for non-consensual sterilisation in the 13 countries cited do not restrict the practice by gender, but the policy discussions and media attentions typically concentrate on women due to issues surrounding motherhood and fertility. However, human rights organisations have called for an end to forced sterilisation for all people with disabilities, regardless of gender or diagnosis. Both autistic men and women are vulnerable where guardians or authorities are empowered to make medical and reproductive decisions without meaningful consultation or consent from the individual. The right to bodily autonomy and to family life is fundamental. No one else should have the power to decide who can be a parent. Sarah and other activists need solidarity, visibility, and accountability from governments and civil society. The Istanbul Convention must be enforced in practice, not just in principle, so forced sterilisation is finally consigned to history. I know that's quite intense and quite powerful, but also very important. What's people's thoughts?
I think I would agree with the intention, the final statement there. I can't really go into depth about this, it's just too complex. But forced sterilisation, definitely, a no-no. But as I say, it's a very complex thing about reproductive rights and family and stuff. And there's always a bit of me that tries to see the contrary argument to how I feel. And at this moment, it's just a wee bit too complex to get through without saying anything that might be a bit troublesome.
The reason that I shared, not just because it's an important topic, but it's something that I've seen discussed before many years ago. Not within autism as such, but within disabled people. In terms of what the media or documentary I was watching at the time. I don't remember it in great detail, but I do remember it being controversial. And there were reasons given to why things are put across this way, why decisions are made, and why it happens to people. And the more as time has went on, the more you realise it's infuriating to read. It's infuriating to hear about. It's that someone else is taking power over someone else, over something that is so, it's like taking something away. And the reason for that is because people believe that you or a person isn't responsible enough or isn't capable enough of being a parent or making children, having families. It's just that sort of decision, that sort of as we've said about many different things and shared about many different things, it's like people look as one way of doing something is the right way, even though that right way of doing something doesn't actually exist. It's just what people compare themselves to when they're parenting, when they're living, when they're doing anything. So it just seems that if anything seems a wee bit different or someone seems different, it means there's something wrong. And that means decisions such as forced sterilisation happens. It is quite intense, and it's a topic that can't just be discussed. It's got to be in depth, but it's something worthwhile touching on, because it just reading and thinking about people that's been going through this and it's happened to, particularly women, being sterilised and not being able to have children because someone else says so. It's quite upsetting, actually, even just talking about it, as I am just now.
I do worry about, Harry, about the slippery slope idea that if this is tolerated, then it exists and then it can be extended, to areas and communities and people who it's maybe not aimed at currently because that's seen as too controversial or too infringing of human rights. There's a great amount of people out there who want to claw back any human rights that have been gained over the past century, and they'll be looking at reopenings to extend that.
The next post is from When My Brain Is Messy. An author, an AUDHD children's picture book author and mum of 2. And they've shared the following. I wonder, with all these new AI actors and animal compilation videos, etc., if it will force people back to watching the real world. So many things on social media is questioned to be real or not, and that appeal gets lost in the moment we question the reality behind it. All of a sudden, I want to go to the theatre or see bands live. The more I scroll videos, the more I actually don't want to, because it's getting harder to differentiate between what's real and what's AI generated. And I hate not knowing what's real and what isn't anymore. Anyone else feeling this way? It's also made me want to explore the world, art, and photography more, just so I can produce and be in awe of things I know are real and right in front of me. I know most people feel like AI will take over art, actors, etc., but the appeal of art isn't in its perfection. For me, it's in the imperfections that make it both real and unbelievable at the same time. What's your thoughts?
This is nothing new. There's a film called Videodrome, a David Cronenberg film, and there's a very good quote in that. Everything that is television is real. Everything that is real is less than television. Because even back in 1983, people didn't believe things unless they saw them on TV, and it's just the same now.
I may be overly optimistic, but I think it's the artists who are going to be very good at AI. Once the noise is out of the way, and perhaps the audience that can appreciate art already can see what's not real.
I think the poster here is focusing on a negative, quite rightly in her case, of the commercial side to all this, the the scrolling on social media, which is basically, it's based on dopamine hits. It's like the pick and mix section in Woolworths, you know. It's like, what sweeties can I have? And you don't really need sweeties, and you don't know what's in them or whether they're real or not. But for that moment, they're real. And so you get caught into this thing of scrolling through. What do they call it? They call it the attention economy. They're basically capturing your attention through hits. And that's not all of what's going on with the technology just now. But it definitely is a thing that is negative with regard to one's vision of the world, say, or your sense of reality. But a bit of perspective and a bit of depth sees that all through culture and history, reality has been represented in various ways through various technologies. Some we consider now to be real or more real than what's going on now with current technology. But there's similar processes. But I definitely agree that if you can get away from that scrolling capture and get back into a wee bit more somatically or body-based lifestyle, that's going to be good for you.
It feels to me that the poster has found a positive here. They're saying that AI slop that started to fill a feed that they would normally look to has become so unreliable that they've looked beyond it and are being themselves artists, living as artists, seeing things in reality and caring about live performance. So we could take this as a very positive reaction to people misusing AI and filling our brains with the spam that they're creating.
Yeah, if I'm following you there, Jules, life is a live event, and I've been speaking to some friends of mine about, you know, the disturbing control within social platforms and things, social media platforms, and even operating systems, our means of using technology to communicate. And he is a live performer who is in a travelling show. He goes around the country and has done for decades, performing, but communicating, and meeting people, having relationships. So it's inspirational that that still exists, and it's possibly the what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, the more positive reflection on this.
It feels to me that the poster is pointing out that we have alternatives, that just because a dystopian future looks possible doesn't mean that we don't have the wherewithal ourselves to be human, share with each other, and see art where art is. I'm on their side. I'm saying that maybe the artificiality that is being added through AI to social media will actually make some people see it as a tipping point. It's become such junk now that they are going to look elsewhere.
I was reading it over again there, Jules. This is a mum of two, so I'm not going to assume what her age is or their age is, but I've got to also reflect on the fact that there are generations out there who know nothing but a mediated reality through social media and the internet, and their expectations are this should be working for me. This is my culture, my world, my technology. Why is it so shit? So if they're beginning to wake up or realise, then something's, as I said to my friend, something is rotten in the state of YouTube.
I think I'm picking up on something from you, Ray, that makes me feel that what you're saying is that younger generations probably have had everything curated for them, and I worry about that because it feels to me that the younger generations are incredibly tech savvy, and it's old gits like me on Facebook that are more likely to be credulous when they see these things, and the younger generation has a bit more of a handle on it because they're used to it. So maybe it's about us not understanding them. Maybe we're actually the ones that are at risk, not them.
And don't you think our reality was curated pre-internet through various forms of media, and we may be judging this newer generation from that point of view?
You had a good point.
I understand it from that point of view, Ray. Yes, thank you.
G had a good point. I was talking about the film Videodrome, which is over 40 years old. And basically it's talking about the power of television. And to this day, power of television, is still very quite impactful, particularly through news and culture. And what people say is what they say is true. The narratives that people kind of believe or want to believe in. So the AI thing is just another level of that. So don't get me wrong. What I do in my general kind of life is I'm on Facebook a lot, I'm on YouTube a lot, and I have been caught out because I watch these reels, particularly on Facebook, that are maybe a couple of minutes long, maybe only 30 seconds long, and you can spend days on it. Basically, it's quite addictive. Obviously that's the main point. And there were stuff, things like a child playing with a pet animal, like a cat or a dog, and it looks like they're communicating. I thought that's quite cute, and then you're realising, well, wait a minute, that actually isn't real. Because it's not always dead obvious. It's just the silly things. And I've got to admit, when I begin to realise that AI is much more impactful, it's just a fictional thing that comes in. It really does disappoint. And the point of the post as well, you can get out there into the real world anyway and see things for what they are. So at least there's a choice. But I just thought it was a very good point about what we see and what we learn and what is real and what is not. It's something you can get lost in for a long time, but you can take it as a positive or negative. It's not all bad, and obviously it's not all good either.
Sorry, on a final note, I didn't realise that Elvis had actually done a performance with John Lennon.
The next post is from Autism Adventures Abroad, which is a travel service. I'm an autistic travel writer and photographer who creates a variety of articles, blogs, and guides for the autistic community to travel with confidence. And it's Alec Chatikas that we've had a few podcasts with, and he shared a picture of himself in Ha Long Bay in Vietnam, and saying, following quote, "The world is big and I want to have a good look at it before it gets dark." What's your thoughts?
My immediate reaction is, oh mate, the world's already dark.
I followed the Stones all over America and Canada and Europe, and I don't think I could really. I couldn't travel unless there was something like a concert there. I mean, I'd go to another country and then I'd be in San Francisco. I never visited Alcatraz. I went to the cinema all the time. So I didn't really do anything different. But I wouldn't like travelling now.
Isn't that classic autism though? We need a reason.
I really, going back 1988, I went to Berlin. We were supposed to be going to a couple of concerts. It was West Berlin then, and when I got there, it was cancelled. But I'm glad I went there for the 5 days because the wall was still up, so it was really something worth seeing. And then when I came home and there was a group of us in the pub, one of the guys said, "Oh, have you been on holiday this year?" And I said, "Yeah, I went to Berlin, West Berlin." And he went, "Oh, that sounds great." And he'd just come home from Spain. And I said, if I wanted to spend a week on a beach, there's one 3 miles down the road.
Holidays in the sun.
I don't mind traveling. And it's possibly because with my own children who are neurodivergent in a different way than me, um, we like traveling with each other. I agree with what you're saying, GR. I don't think we're ever going for the usual. But then when they started getting to the end of high school, my daughter said to me, "Why don't you book something for yourself alone?" Ah, that's when it got really good. I could go all over Turkey with these tiny little groups, kind of like this fellow's company. And I would just make sure that the other people in the small group of maybe 8 people were people that I could travel with, and it's been brilliant.
I think if people want to go to Alex's Facebook page and his website and his blog, he has tours where autistic people are understood and are taken in small groups to see different parts of the United States. So it's something to follow up on for Alex.
I wonder how they relate to people who have issues with panic in travelling.
I'd imagine it's the reason of why you would panic, why panic happens, and to find out why that happens, then plan round to avoid panic happening, I would imagine. And the reason that I'm saying that is because that's something that, that I've felt that I've came close to myself in some trips that I've went, particularly going on a aeroplane.
Yeah, I in my life have had dreadful panic traveling, but more as a child in an airplane and also in an underground cave with all those beautiful whatever they're called stalagmites. Yeah, that's a hard one, and I'm pretty sure if you traveled with Alex's group, they would have something for that.
The reason we panic generally is because of lack of control, not knowing what's happened next, and feeling that things are too much for us. And I'm guessing that Alex sought these things out so that people are informed enough so that their anxiety levels stay within the norm. Also, he makes sure that everything is provided. If you're traveling with a group, it's less stress on you. You're not having to make every single decision. It's different to solo travel.
So it's like an experience.
I'm guessing because the population that pays for these kind of trips has the money to do so, likely to be late identified, and so just the fact that they're with a whole group of other autistic people might be part of the travel experience more than anything else.
That's making me think that they already enjoy travelling and have no real issue with it. Because I'm always looking at why would you want to travel? You know, well, that's what I ask myself. Why do I want to travel? I don't want to travel. And there are many reasons for that, good and bad. But it's like anything in life. Why do I want anything? But I asked about experience because sometimes an experience has nothing to do with what you want. It's something that happens. And it won't happen if you avoid it, if you see what I mean. But I'm not going to force myself into doing something just because I avoid it.
No, and I go along with what you're saying there, Ray. But for some people, travel is out of the comfort zone. It's putting themselves in slightly risky circumstances to test themselves to see that they can do things differently. And for some of them, they will find unusual experiences that they then take back and add to parts of their lives. So opportunity is always fraught with danger.
You know what I don't like though? Bucket lists. It just seems like pressure.
Yeah, and I think just quite naturally, we probably could make a spectrum of travel, and there'd be all these types of travel that we would never do. And then, like GR said, when he's going for his special interest, and even when the concert was canceled, he knew in West Berlin what to see and what to leave out. No shade on the cruise ship industry, but I would not do that.
Wasn't the world colonized by travellers?
Well, I just think you have to travel to colonize, so I don't think that's it. But I hear you. I think you could run the risk of being the wrong type of traveler and looking at different cultures through a lens like that, but I feel like we wouldn't do that.
No, I'm not totally cynical. I've met some really good travellers, really good, interesting, deep people.
The next post is from Karuna Therapeutic Services, who's a therapist and is a autistic-led neuroaffirming counselling practice that empowers late identified autistic adults to heal, reconnect, and live authentically in a world that wasn't built for you, based in the UK. And what they talk about is advocacy without disclosure. In an ideal world, being open about our autistic identity would be met with validation, respect, and understanding. But for many of us, that isn't the reality. Too often, disclosure brings scrutiny instead of support. That familiar moment where the light seems to turn on us, questions sharp and suspicious, like we're being cross-examined for daring to name our difference. For some autistic people, it simply isn't safe to disclose. Not to employers, not to potential employers, sometimes not even to friends or family. And here's the truth. You don't owe anyone your story. Your neurology does not need to be public to be valid. So, what can advocacy look like without disclosure? It begins with identifying your needs. These are not special requests. They are access points to safety, regulation, and participation. You might say, I focus best when I can have quiet time between meetings. Written communication helps me process things more clearly. I work best with clear expectations and timelines. I need time to think before responding. I'll get back to you. None of these require naming autism. They simply describe what supports your well-being. Advocacy doesn't always have to be loud. Sometimes it's quiet, steady, and strategic. It's about creating conditions where you can thrive, without needing to justify why. You have the right to safety, inclusion, and authenticity, whether you choose to disclose or not. What's people's thoughts?
This is excellent. When I first found out, I started disclosing to a lot of people, and then I put the brake on that. But then looking at the part of my life where I didn't know I had it, I used to do things like say, "Oh, I forgot I'm double booked. I'm supposed to be in another meeting right now." Or I would tell whole groups of people I managed that I just in this really cliche way, don't make decisions until I sleep on them.
This came up before, and I said when I was first when my mother died and I had all the issues going on, and my doctor said if anyone says anything to you and you're unsure, say no. Don't say yes because you think you have to say yes. If you're unsure, say no.
That is excellent. My doctor told me that once too, a long time ago, and I've never forgotten it.
What I like about this post is it feels it relates to me in many ways. Because I've had the habit of overcommitting for the sake of being pleasant. And I have also had the habit of oversharing because I felt there was a need for it. Although once it's been shared, I went, wait a minute, that did need to be shared. It's all about balance. It's all about looking after yourself, accommodating yourself, feeling safe, and feeling you don't need to justify your existence, basically. Because that's what many autistic people will feel. It's like you have to justify being different, even though everybody's different anyway. It's a strange one because there's this sort of myth that, that there's this sort of average person that you are compared to. And this average person is generally very good at everything and makes no mistakes, all that kind of nonsense. But when you challenge something or you feel that you need to challenge something, you feel like, you just feel vulnerable. So you try and kind of mask and, just try to go with the so-called crowd just to suit others around you rather than looking after yourself. And it's taken a long time, but I follow a lot from what this post is saying. If I'm feeling that I need help with something, I basically ask something to be written down or typed down so I can read it over and over, like an instruction. Even if that instruction is actually very simple to the person giving it. And even to me, once it's been read over and over, it's actually a pretty simple thing. It's just about processing. So I feel that these sort of posts are very, very helpful and very worthwhile repeating time and again.
Is there a fear that if you disclose that you have a problem with something, rather than say go full on and say, oh, I've been diagnosed with something? So you say, I have a problem with something, make accommodations. Is there a fear there that that isn't enough and you will be judged harshly for that as being, faulty or someone who isn't performing well? Especially in work environments and social environments?
I think you're right there, Ray. People do fear that if they hand over a diagnosis, then they are allowing other people to take control of that narrative. And very often, people will have very skewed ideas of what an autism diagnosis might mean for a perfectly capable employee, even if they have experience of autism third hand through family. They might be thinking of a particular autistic child rather than an adult that's in front of them. For me, I say in most circumstances that disclosing your autism is inappropriate, because in those environments, you're unlikely, simply by disclosing your autism, to get the necessary situation or environment for yourself. So the techniques that the poster puts down as alternative ways of describing why an employee should need something or require something because it's a personality or the way they are makes much more sense to me. Handing people the word autism means that you're asking or giving them the opportunity to simply put their own prejudices upon that word.
I think the point I was making about these alternatives that you focus on there are that without and quite correctly you said an autism diagnosis might not even give you this kind of clout, but it may give you some backup legally, say, to air the fact that you have conditions that you need satisfied in your environment. Because if you just ask for these things without any reason, you may be judged negatively as not, obeying the rules, as it were.
This could be a little cynical, but one workaround if you worked in a large typical organization would be just to use, I don't think the word is a clap track, but just look at what sorts of training the HR department is providing and just say, I am a whatever the flavor of the day is that divides personalities up, and say, as an INTJ, I need blah de blah.
Thanks everyone for discussion tonight. We're coming to the end of our broadcast. Quite in-depth discussions tonight, quite intense, but always thought-provoking and enjoyable. So this is Harry's Facebook for Sunday the 9th of This is Harry's Facebook for Sunday the 9th of November 2025. And here every Sunday, 5:55 PM to 7 PM UK time. So thanks everyone for taking part, and a special thanks to people who have shared these posts that we've talked about today. So thank you once again, and I'll hand over to Jules.
I'm just going to end it and we can edit from that, Harry.